Hello.
Hey.
How is it going? We have a familiar face again back in the stream. Who are you exactly?
I'm Dennis.
He's Dennis. For the people that don't know, this is Dennis. We're going to talk about Update 5.0 Part 2.
Part 2.
Because obviously we already had a stream with some stuff, like level change, we'll touch on it in a minute, last week. And now we're going to have quite a lot. We have a lot of slides
A lot of
prepared.
stuff. It's a big update.
It's
5.0.
a list, 2 pages. Well, I mean,
Like,
I already heard that the
spoilers, the actual patch notes.
Yeah, the patch notes are like 5
more.
pages. So I think this might be like the second biggest update that we've done.
Yeah,
like,
it's definitely one of the bigger ones for sure.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's gonna be good.
I hope you guys are ready for a lot of stuff. So obviously, as usual, we'll talk about everything. We're also gonna have someone else on the stream that hasn't been on the stream yet.
Yes.
Later for the Immolator. That actually sort of rhymes.
Yep.
Later Immolator. And obviously Q&A at the end with both Dennis and Vince.
I finally get to sit on the couch.
Yeah, we're gonna sit on the couch. So yeah, what are some of the highlights we have for the stream? Obviously, I already spoiled it.
We have the Emulator obviously as a very, very big point for this update. This is spoilers ahead. That's going to be the last thing we're going to talk about today. And for that, we're going to get a new face on the screen for this. It's going to be Ben. He is one of the system designers working on it. And he explained like all the details about his AI. If you've read the recent blog, then he's already had a couple of his thoughts shared there.
Is the video lagging? I mean, we don't have any
Not
issues with the stream for us. Like no drop frames. Is it like loading or is it lagging in what way? And has everyone got lag? Because I do see multiple people mention it. Like, we're not dropping any frames. Everything seems fine. Okay, no worries. It might be that you just have to change the, the encoding settings, but it should be fine.
Maybe it's us.
Maybe it is us. No, I don't know. It's probably Twitch, because, like, we haven't dropped a single frame. No technical difficulties in this stream today.
Highlights. So besides the Emulator, we got a couple other points to talk about. So we have some weapon-related stuff to show, specifically also on the area of weapon balancing.
Yeah.
And we're gonna recap a little bit from last stream as well in terms of like the game mode-related stuff that Sven has already run through a little bit.
Level changes.
Obviously, if you are interested in that, watch last week's stream. Really good information about what's going on the level front. And yeah, I mean the big theme for us has been obviously performance as well, right? Like so many of the optimizations that we've talked about last stream already with Sven.
And also already during the stream before.
Even before that, it's been like, okay, that 5.0 is like the second performance update for us. So in this case, it's mostly on the asset side, so optimizations to specific things. So for example, we're going to talk about our animal traps in the world. We've already talked about some of the level changes and everything under the hood has received like some optimizations, etc.
Yeah, exactly. So we won't be talking about performance because we mentioned even though performance is a very big part of this update as well. As explained during 2 streams ago, we have been working with like multiple departments, so improving, the characters, polygons, stuff like that. So a lot of stuff has already been discussed in the previous 2 streams for 5.0, but now we're going more into the balancing and the content.
Yes.
Stuff that you guys also very much like. So yeah, without further ado, I think we should just head on in.
Let's head on.
So update 5.0.
The first thing, so let's talk about the new player experience specifically. So one thing that we're working on towards is obviously making sure that new players have an easier time finding their way into the game. We've done a couple things in the past. So we talked about the training mode. We talked about the rules that we applied with that. For example, not losing your hunters if you're a new player up to like, rank 15 or including 15. So from 16 on, you would lose them.
Having always a free tier 1.
Exactly. And there's like different ways now how you can kind of like bypass the tax that we have on recruiting hunters just by finding weapons, etc. So the game is, from an economy point of view, changed quite a bit. But what we want to do now with a bit of a more focus over this update, but also on the next updates, is to focus on the new player experience, like how we explain stuff, how we teach people stuff, to make sure that new players have it easier to get into the game, find their way around, and most importantly, stick with the game.
Exactly.
So what we've been trying to do here is, as you can see on the slide, you see like the first couple of ranks and what you unlock in the bloodlines. And one issue what we've seen is that as someone who started new, or even prestige players, they don't really have that many traits available, and also like the gear in the very beginning is pretty limited. So what we wanted to do is make sure that if you manage to come out of your mission alive, which with the training mode is kind of a bit of a given that you will at least not die. So there will be some progress that you can actually spend these upgrade points. And unless you lost health, obviously there isn't much you can spend it on right now. So what we want to make sure is give you a couple traits right from the get-go. So for that, we had a look at the trait list, and we found Conduit, Pack Mule, and Greyhound to be good candidates because each in their own right kind of allow new players to kind of stay alive. Like
I also feel they're very staple like picks because I always go for Greyhound and Pack Mule, and I feel that that's just a I don't know, like a no-brainer. Conduit a bit less, but Pack Mule and Greyhound.
Yes, and Conduit we picked primarily for the health bonus it gives you. So for new players, like being able then to find a clue and getting some health back, possibly because they lost it against AI, because they might not know yet how to best deal with them. Like it just eases them up a little bit into the game. Pack Mule, obviously, you can bring more like weak vitality shots in the beginning at least, or like bring more firebombs, more equipment, more tools. And Greyhound, general for mobility, just...
Did you just say big vitality shot from rank 1?
No, the weak.
I mean the weak. Okay, I was about to say.
And we also looked at the weapons and thought like, okay, well, the Winfield C at the moment is unlocked in, I think, rank 2, so it's kind of the first thing you get.
Yeah, you can see.
But we want to just like make that available right from the get-go, so that you have both a rifle and a shotgun option right from the beginning, and also added like the Romero 77 hand cannon. The base one obviously already is available there, and the combat access to medium options, so that people can already start experimenting without having to unlock those over the first couple of ranks. And just makes things a little bit easier. Not massive changes, but it's just one of those steps out of many steps we want to take to make it easier and ease players into it a little bit more.
Not less hardcore, just easier to get started and get used to the pain that you'll feel afterwards.
There have been a couple other changes in addition to that. So this what you see on the slide is like the default equipment, but we also had a quick look at the first couple of ranks, where by default right now on rank 6 you get, can you see it?
Yeah, no, the camera is out of focusing. Let me turn it off. Just keep talking. It's fine.
So the first couple ranks at the moment mean that only from rank 6 on would you get your first trait, which was, I think, determination, or is determination. But we also added, for example, horn skin, which is the one that makes it a bit more survivable against blunt melee, which is like what most of the AI is causing. And made that the first unlock now, where the Winfield used to unlock at rank 2. So just overall reshuffling a little bit, moving things around a little bit in the unlock order, and just make things a little bit more easier to get into. No rocket science, just improvements step by step. I think then we can move on to the next point already, I guess. So
the bounty hunt changes.
So the next 2 slides are basically talking to us about the game modes. And so one thing that we've really wanted to do for a while, and we finally had a chance to do that, is look at clue camping and how to prevent it, and how to, without changing everything completely, actually make it something which is less likely to occur. So what we've done is that for both Bounty Hunt, but also for Quick Play Later, for the Rifts, we have added some readability warning in, that if you and some other guy are in close proximity to a clue, that clue is like kind of like glowing in a different color, a bit of reddish hue. It looks a bit differently.
I mean, we have some pictures of it.
We show some pictures. We can maybe do it right now.
Let
me go back to the slide.
There's 3, I believe.
Okay, so as you can see already, maybe it's not the best starting picture. You can see some red effect there. I'm gonna cycle through them a little bit. It's a bit clearer here on this one. And much clearer here.
As you see someone in the corner.
Oh, I didn't even see the guy hiding behind the gun.
You didn't?
It's the first time I see him, honestly. So what it means is that if you and someone from another team, so obviously that doesn't go for your teammate if you have one, are within let's say it's probably half a compound radius roughly, then you will get that warning. So we intentionally didn't put that in, for example, Darkside, so that it actually doesn't benefit campers who just use Darkside and kind of scan the light and then until it turns red, and then they put out their sniper rifle. No, this is really for the guy who is about to press the button, who's about to commit standing still.
You know that there's someone close by.
And then you say like, okay, I'm going to press, oh, maybe I'm not going to press this, and actually going to scan around, etc. So it's a warning to prevent people being headshot killed whatsoever while they're kind of like stuck in the actual animation. And
so I see someone asked, do you see it from afar? No. So like as soon as you, because that was the reason that we didn't do it for Darkside, What's happening? Dark side, it's that you don't see it differently.
Yes,
it's still the
yes.
same clue, because otherwise campers can use it to anti-camp, or like to
like even
see
camp,
if someone can come close by.
camp even better.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's why it's just when you get close and you see the clue.
So it's basically if you can see the particle physically, then you will get the warning.
Exactly.
But it wouldn't be like the big radiating, illuminating light in dark sides.
It is
that would
also
change.
added to quick play rifts. Yeah.
Yes. All right. So that's the first one here. I think that was the last. There's one more here.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like, hey, there is a guy.
Then other things we did. So we also had a look at the recruit composition. So what we have at the moment, that if you manage to rank up until tier 3, so bloodline rank 67 and up to 100, the composition of the recruits changes to allow you to recruit tier 3 hunters. Now what it did so far was it gave you one tier 1, which was usually the free guy, one tier 2, and then 2 tier 3 guys. We felt like that we're kind of underselling the tier 2s a little bit, so we would like to celebrate the tier 2s a little bit more, and actually for that we changed the order to be tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. So there's only one tier 3 now available. We also had some look at the usefulness of these recruits. So this is again something which we looked at as we introduced like the quick play hunters and in general like different ways to get free hunters, to make them a bit more valuable. So we, for example, gave them, or most of them, more traits to start with. So where before they had like 0 to 1 or 1 to 2, or maybe if you're lucky 2 to 3 traits. What you see now is usually on average one more trait given, up to a maximum of 4. So a tier 3 is most of the time like 3 traits, but can have 4. A tier 2 guy is mostly 2 traits, can have 3. And the tier 1 usually has just 1 trait, because the second trait is mostly then used for sniper rifles, etc., where there might be the opportunity to give them a trait like the aiming traits. But since those weapons are not available in tier 1, usually they only come with 1 trait.
Exactly.
That also means that the pricing, the way we calculate the cost, the base cost of the hunters is also like based on the amount of traits they have and the points they cost, etc., the health they have. So systemically, the pricing goes a little bit up. So you might see like a tier 3 hunter actually costing like 100 or even maybe 150 extra as a base on top of the equipment.
So do we want to like explain how we base up like a cost for a hunter?
Roughly, so it's really basically the upgrade points of the traits added up together. There's a specific conversion rate, and a similar thing with the hit points, and then that kind of gives a flat rate bonus for the outfit on top of that. So a tier 3 outfit just is worth a little bit more, because on average in most maps, in most situations, they can give you more camouflage. And that just means that the tier 3 price probably is the most noticeable, going up a little bit. But then again, we've also tried to make them a bit more useful when it comes to the gear and the options they have. Exactly. So that's just something to try out then once we're in a test server and get a feeling for it. Just means that the tier 2 set, where we just have a lot of variety to show, was a bit underrepresented, and we just wanted to have a bit more tier 2s running around.
Yes.
All right. Then
we have the campaign. And the quick play changes.
Quick play changes. So last stream, we mentioned already in the beginning of this stream again, we had lots of level changes. So like Sven ran you guys through all of that. So ideally just watch that stream again. Lots of really cool changes coming in, like additional spawn points as possibility, like in the corners being added, some additional positions for resupply points. The towers have changed, not only the hunting towers with additional windows, but also even like some of the camping spots we saw specifically in quick play.
And we showed heat maps,
all of that.
Heat maps where you can see how many people actually stayed in one location on quick play, which definitely favored the heights.
Yeah, so watch that stream if you didn't have a chance yet. There's some really cool stuff in there.
And also we mentioned Lost and Delta and quick play. Or quick play and Lost and Delta.
Yes, a very, very big change for us. So this is actually one of the patch highlights in general for update 5.0, being able to play quick play now on either of the maps. So basically, if you play quick play, you wake up either on Lost and Delta or in Stillwater Bayou. It's randomly determined, and so prepare for both. What do we else have here? Yes, economy changes.
Yeah.
So maybe actually I think
the XP. We have the economy changes. Well.
No, the XP kind of is that, but actually I skipped through one point, which is the Rift anti-camping mechanic. So this is basically exactly the same what we have for the clues, just that it affects Rift. So now the Rifts would also have the same warning if they're another hunter from a different team. In this case, Quickplay, there's only other teams is close by, and you get the same warning, grace kind of warning period thing. If you pay attention, you can live. All right.
So XP goes into the hunter.
Yes. So what we did there is we had a look at how people get XP in the game at the moment, and specifically quick play has been a bit of an XP boost highway. So you got a lot of easy ways of getting XP and
on your main bloodline.
On your main bloodline, and we wanted to like get a bit more control about that. So what we want to do is not just like cap the max XP or halve it or whatever. Like that didn't feel right for if you're the winner. But we actually are now just following the same logic as we do in Bounty Hunt, which means that the XP actually lives on the hunter. So
you still get some XP, but it's not
exactly. So like the XP is 101 going into the hunter, and then it levels up. So depending how well you've been doing, if you've been sitting in the bush until the last guy was alive, and you just tried to kill him with a machete, didn't pick anything up, etc., you might get very little XP. Therefore, level up with very little with this guy. If you had a blast of a round, maybe you make 10, 15 levels with that hunter, just as you would with a proper good bounty hunt mission. And that means the recruit now comes with upgrade points ready for you to spend the moment you recruit them. So that's going to be pretty interesting, but it gives us on the flip side the chance to kind of keep the XP flow a bit under control, because as you know, systemically only bits of the XP in certain gates trickles down into the bloodline. So we kind of like stop the progression completely going out of control, but actually give you more valuable hunters in return.
Exactly. So you already have upgrade points.
Yep. And then
starting gear.
We talked about the starting gear. So this is a bit of a teaser for something we're going to talk about in a minute. And we've been changing the quick play starting gear in the shotgun category. Now, what that means is that where before we had the Romero Talon, and the the Spectre Compact, we now give you different shotguns. We give you the Romero hand cannon, and the Caldwell Rival hand cannon. We no longer give you the Spectre, and we no longer give you the Romero Talon, and that's just because there are some changes to these weapons. I'm going to talk about it in a second. All right. I think that's all it goes for the economy and quick play changes here. Then
Challenges changes.
Yeah, just say it 10 times fast. So what we've been doing is we released the challenges in the last update, and we received lots of feedback about it, how people liked. We saw the statistics, the data, telemetry, and we could kind of draw some conclusions from it, like saying, okay, which challenges people really liked and were trying to complete, which ones were kind of left empty and unclaimed.
That seemed unobtainable.
And with that in mind, we also obviously tweaked a little bit, like what type of challenges are available and what rewards you might get. So expect with this new update a bit of a fine-tuning on that side. So like some of the requirements, like killing X amount, like they've been lowered a little bit for those challenges that just people wouldn't want to complete. And we also added a couple of additional challenges. So for example, we have quick play related challenges in there now as well. So a couple of additional things we can check. So you can get all of the details later on in the patch notes whenever we go on the test server, but rest assured, challenges are a bit more tuned now, and like besides a lot of the challenges which actually work very well, and we see some very like huge completion rates on them. The ones that we found were problematic, we kind of like corrected them a little bit and just iterated on, and it feels a lot better now, which is cool.
Yeah. Okay. Then we get to
weapon stuff.
We have new weapons.
Oh. So there's one.
I definitely did not see anyone in the chat asking for new weapons.
So, buff shotgun comment. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you can already see it in the background here. New weapons. So we have one weapon that we've only shown that we kind of hinted at for some time. We've been sitting on it, and we have been sitting on this one for a particular reason, which is the Emulator. And Ben is going to explain what that exactly means in regard to this particular weapon. But it is basically a Mosin Nagant Obres, and it has an additional melee blunt attachment. So it becomes a little bit nicer to just club them to pieces. Apart from that, you will see just like it's basically the regular Mosin Nagant. You can also maybe see some hints about the ammunition there, but that's for a much later time.
Next.
So then we released the PAX last patch, the new revolver, medium ammunition, and we wanted to add variations for this as well. So we looked at where we're lacking a little bit, and we have the Officer Brawler, for example, as a handgun with a melee attachment. In this case, the Dustus added to it.
Yeah, I was like.
And so we thought, like, maybe we can just put like a knife on a pistol. So we went to the PAX and actually
What sound do you make when you say the Pax Claw? I'll welcome it later so we can use it as an alert for the stream.
So,
Archie?
what we basically have is not the full power of the knife, the combat knife, so it doesn't make the knife obsolete. But think of it as an in-between between like the throwing knives and the regular knife. So if you do like a heavy melee attack with the Pax Claw against a grunt's head, you will kill him similar as you do with a brawler dusters, right? Just this one doesn't have a stab attack, so this is slash in both sides, so it causes the bleeding damage. It's a rending type weapon, but it is not a stabby one hits knife thingy everywhere in the upper torso. It's just for the head, so it gives you some of the power of the knife, but it doesn't make the knife obsolete.
Exactly. And the next weapon is something that I really like because I am a dual user.
All right, so we're introducing more modern stuff now. Behold the Bornheim. This weapon is a bit of an interesting one for us because it's basically the Dolch's little cousin. Mm-hmm. So we're looking at a 5-shot compact ammunition semi-automatic pistol. That for its time was very revolutionary, but if you would look at it in like with a modern perspective, actually is a pretty clunky and pretty like awkward and weird to reload weapon. You will see that a little bit more in motion when you try it out yourself. So we don't have a video for it here. I'm going to keep something for when you guys are on the test server. Mm-hmm. Now, this one isn't interesting because obviously it's a tier 1 weapon. It's something available in the early ranks. I think, let me double check. At rank 21 is when we make this available for, what's the price? Let me check a look at the changelog for that. For $63. It's a bargain.
I mean, it's a steal. I mean, it is. I mean, I love the Dolch, so I think this is a really, really great weapon as like a pre-Dolch, like the warm-up.
What's nice about this one is just it's kind of kept in balance with a 5-round capacity. So we've noticed how quickly those 5 rounds are gone with the rate of fire it has, and you find yourself like without any ammunition and the other guy charging you. So it's a weapon that still requires a lot of skill to be used correctly because you need to conserve the ammunition properly. Also, the reload takes a moment because you just kind of flap open the side, put the clip in, close it, cock the weapon. Or if you don't have a full clip, just top it up manually, similar to what we do in the Dolch. So obviously this weapon will benefit from a bullet grubber trait as well, of like catching the bullet, etc. So it's a bit of an awkward mechanic. It's intentionally rough because it's been a new invention and not perfected yet. But I think this will be a nice addition for people and a good alternative as a rapid fire weapon.
On
lower levels, but also like as just like a bit of a budget option compared to the Dolch.
Exactly. That was it for the weapons.
So yes, this has, just because the question comes up, this does have a faster rate of fire than the officer.
Yeah. Were we gonna put something after this? Yes, we were.
Yes.
I can't read your handwriting.
It's because it's secret handwriting.
The flashlight.
This is something different. You spoiled the flashlight. Oh, okay. We'll talk about the flashlight as well in a second. But this one is actually the tentative fix for the healing bug.
Yeah. So obviously, I mean, I wasn't sure when we were going to mention it anymore. We know very much that the healing bug is pretty much, I would say, the most bothersome bug for you guys, because obviously it's really annoying if you want to heal you in a tense fight and it doesn't work. So at the moment we have a tentative fix for update 5.0. Obviously, it's not completely fixed yet, and we're still very, very high, We
need to validate it. So it is on the test server. When we go on the test server, you can try it out. But this is mostly also for us to then expose it to you guys, so have more players use it, see if actually our tentative fix, we hope fixes it. It's one of these things which is hard to validate without going on a live environment, or at least on the test server with like a large scale exposure, because internal testing can only do so many samples and it's hard to miss stuff. So we hope to have taken another step towards resolving this issue. Maybe we are lucky. Maybe we need to go back and actually fix some more about it, but at least we have some first things in there, and this goes along with like some logging improvements. So even if we maybe find out we can't fix it, we actually might get some more information we didn't have before.
Someone filled half the syringes with ketchup. That's a good one. I see someone are talking about the Lamate. The Lamate is still coming, but you'll have to wait a little bit longer.
What's the Lamate?
I don't know. I've never seen it. Totally not in a challenge video.
Just because they put some props on the table, they assume it's a new weapon? Maybe. Then let's talk about the other thing you just spoiled, which is
so the flashlight.
The flashlight. So
when did we actually? It's like after this.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. So the flashlight. We finally had a chance to look at this slightly underused item.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a nice concept, but it could be a little bit better, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So. We didn't fully had a chance to redesign the whole thing, but we adjusted something on it, which we hope makes the whole thing a little bit more valuable. So the electric light tool, what we have done with it is we have added a stronger light cone in third person, which means the intensity of the light is much stronger. And now what we can do is we can use this to actually conceal the person wielding the flashlight. So what we hope with this is, you can see there is a video, that people looking at someone with a flashlight, if that guy also looks at them, is a bit more obscured in the light. There's a bit overbloom, and obviously this only works up to such a certain distance. And we hope that primarily when it comes to moving into like compounds... Go
away! None of that happened. Okay, well, just clicking the videos like that. Nothing.
You need to leave something for Ben later.
No.
So
saved.
Catch your breath. It's all right.
Nothing happened. I don't know what you're talking about.
So
flashlights.
With the flashlight, with the electric light tool, to give it its proper name, we hope now that people actually find some use for it. We know and we understand this is still a bit of a border case, edge case type of equipment piece, but there might be some additional use for it right now. And tell us what you think of it. Tell us if it's maybe too powerful, whether it helps you, whether you think it actually has a purpose now in the game, because we all agree it right now without these changes does not. And then we see further changes maybe might come to it as we move forward.
Exactly. I mean, in general, you're going to see that in if you keep watching, you'll see the video. It's just, you just saw a glimpse very quickly. Nothing. It's going to be
good. So that covers the new weapons then.
Yes.
So
that means balance.
Let's talk about balance changes. So for this one, I'm going to use my big cheat sheet here because we have quite a lot of things to talk through. So let's start with the general tweaks we've been doing. So one big thing we did was related to aiming down sights and the pixel accuracy of aiming. Yeah. So we looked at the weapon sway we have in the game. So there's a procedural system running which kind of smooths out the movement of the weapon and with the breathing, etc. Gives you the feeling of actually like the weapon not being completely static.
Yeah.
But we always had some issues with the system because it can mean that the weapon sometimes by a pixel or two is off target. And that's bad in a shooter game where every bullet counts, like Hunt. So,
as you know, if you have read the blog, we are talking a lot about hit validation and,
yes,
shooting on target. So this is one of the steps that we're doing, to improve our readability and validation.
Yeah. And so what we've been doing is we refactored that system and we replaced that procedural animation system with actual camera sway. So that means the weapon is aligned 100% to the crosshair. It's just that the screen itself has a slightly more motion because we can compensate. We took one thing out and the other one was bumped a little bit. So it should give you a very similar experience in how you shoot, but the shots should be more pixel accurate and more reliable. I mean, we're talking about edge cases here, so this is not that every second shot would be affected by it, but it was still something we identified as one of the reasons why sometimes shots might be a bit off. And by eliminating that particular point, we can then also focus much better on actually like aim assist, like you call it, like the prediction systems for validation, etc.
Yeah.
The whole favoring the shooter mechanics we have, and make sure that this is tuned as much as possible without any of these layered on top systems interfering. Yes. So that's the general stuff. Obviously, we also adjusted some of the weapon stats in the shop based on some of the things we're going to talk about here for balancing, so that you will see that.
Displays as well, right?
There's also something maybe worth mentioning. So we've looked a little bit at the stats and how they are displayed in the shop system. We had this already as a discussion in one of the previous streams. I think
if we can get numbers
or autumn last year, etc. And we think now we have found a solution that we want to implement. So this is not in this update, but it's something that will happen as we move towards the next updates. to give you a bit more meaningful and accurate numbers in there. So, for example, we've already made the decision that we would like to have damage represented by the actual true damage of a weapon that is hitting a player in the upper chest area.
Yeah.
So which is like besides the head, the most powerful body multiplier we have. That means, for example, later on, what you would see is that the Sparks rifle would have obviously the number 149 there, because it kind of leaves you with 1 hit point.
Yeah.
So you get a bit more information. Again, this is just a hint at what is to come. This is not part of this update, but we used the work on actually updating the stats a little bit here and there to also think about the design of this and how we want to move it forward. So then, specific stuff.
Into the specific balances change. The balances change.
So shotgun changes. So this is actually a pretty big one. This is what we consider also a highlight of this update 5.0.
Yes.
Because we're kind of redesigning shotguns pretty massively. And this is primarily to resolve 2 things. First off, make them more normalized, which means make sure we don't have so much RNG in there. Like shooting someone in your crosshair with a shotgun should result in a kind of like consistent amount of damage, at least as much as a shotgun can do that. Obviously there's always multiple pellets being fired, so there is always some RNG, some randomness in there.
But to have a bit more precision.
Exactly. So what we've done now is that shotguns will have a number of the pellets they fire be fired with a much smaller spread. So they're guaranteed to be closer to the crosshair area. So it means if I have actually the target in my sights correctly, there is a better chance for me to actually score, again, like some sort of a consistent damage level. And for that purpose, we kind of actually obviously had to look at shotguns, because just introducing that feature for the shotguns would have just turned them into like godlike killing machines. Like we don't want it either. So we had to look and actually change the shotguns to be a little bit closer to how we think real shotguns work. Which is like in video games, there's always this tendency to have shotguns be this like room sweeper, widespread, like hundreds of pellets shooting and killing 20 people at the same time, and that's not how they work in real life. So what we tried to do is looking at the choke and the amount of spread shotguns actually do, which means that overall shotguns have a tighter spread now, which means overall all of the pellets. We have videos in a second. Yeah, all of the pellets are being fired much more in a cone, which means that you will be able to actually aim with them, but you can also be really missing with them if you don't have proper aim, like with any other weapon. Obviously, range is much more limited on shotguns compared to other weapons, so this is where also part of the balancing comes from. This means, though, that the shotguns feel a little bit different, and alongside with that, we also try to make the different types of shotguns we have in the game a bit more different to one another. To actually have a look at, for example, what we see on the screen here, the Romero, and give some of those weapons more of a place in the arsenal as a competitive choice, rather as something you don't pick anymore once something better is available.
Exactly. So let's look at how the Romero shoots now.
No, this is now old.
Yeah, this is like on live with you guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh?
Yeah, no, this is just exactly. So this is so already. That weapon was like almost the most precise shotgun we had, and we weren't too worried about this one, but within a new system, we still kind of pushed this a little bit further. So the Romero is now, if you want to use that term, it's like the sniper rifle of shotguns. It's the one with the biggest range of all of the shotguns. It's the one with the tightest spread, so you need more actual careful aiming with it. But obviously, compared to like a rifle, it still has like this margin of error because you shoot a number of pellets in there. So at close range, like here we're talking about like 5 meters, it technically is just like, was it like 8 inches, 20 centimeters, like diameter. The further you move away, that thing actually starts spreading more. And keep in mind the damage also drops off, which means if I would just, for example, in this particular scene here, try to shoot across the pond on the left side, like which would be like 20-30 meters, that weapon is no good for that purpose. Like anyone with a Winfield on the other side will just take you out in no time.
Yeah, let me just add this one so we can have them like, so it's Alt, new, Alt.
Yeah, I mean, so the Romero is probably the one which is also the hardest to show off on stream because it's already pretty accurate and we just made it a little bit more accurate, but you will see that difference maybe in the second example we have, which is the rival hand cannon.
Yeah, there it's
and you can see it a little bit better. Again, many of these things actually require you guys to be on the test server and try it out, and this is a fluid process for us. So this is initial values we have in there. We plan on being on the test server until this is ready. So feedback we get, etc., will help shape this up over the next then days and weeks, depending on how long we want to be there. Can you work it? So this is just a starting point. But it means if you, with a Romero, for example, really have an enemy directly in the center of your crosshair, you might be able to bring him down like up to maybe even 10 meters if you have a good hit.
So currently hand rifle on life.
Yeah, so like this goes all over the place. Yeah. What you see here is also the randomness of the actual spread pattern. It's basically like the top right, for example, from the last shot here on the left, didn't even get on anything. And by just like running the new formulas behind this, the way we distribute the spread, actually we have a bit more control about this. So this one, specifically the hand cannon here, was pretty RNG and pretty frustrating. Now with the changes here, what you can see is that this hand cannon actually is like, I would say it's twice the spread of the Romero already. Yeah. And the further you move away, like it still gets close to like that old familiar pattern.
It's technically the one if you shoot closer with like.
Yeah. But then again, we expect point blank is kind of like anyways insta kill. Was already right now and is still the case with the new guns. It's just that a hand cannon now can be more of a solid backup weapon that actually you can use without the guy literally standing 1 meter in front of you.
Yeah. And then there is one other change that we have done.
Yep. So the Spectre goes into this as well.
Just like pause if you want to.
Just start up.
Yeah. Okay.
So we've done something to the rate of fire of the Spectre because it was always bothering us a little bit. I think you guys were not happy about this as well. We've actually tuned the fire rate so it shoots a little bit faster than it used to. Actually means you can do more quicker follow-up shots, and therefore hopefully the Spectre has more of an equal place in the arsenal compared to, for example, like the Rival. Like the issue we have right now in life is that the Rival, firing 2 shots, reloading, firing 2 more shots, actually can get the 4 shots out faster than the Spectre was able to.
Spectre fanning.
And so what we see now is if you take a look at the family of the shotguns, so we have the Romero being the one which is obviously limited by just having 1 shot. Similar to like the Sparks with the rifles, right? It's handicapped, just you need to hit that 1 hit, otherwise you have to wait a moment before you can fire again. But you're being rewarded with something which is just a bit more like reliable to use because of the changes to the spread distribution, but also reaches out a little bit further. Yeah. So Romero actually is a pretty decent gun right now for close range, and just I feel is a viable option now compared to some of the other guns. So that some of the bigger goals what we had with this redesign was to not just fix the randomness, but also make sure that each of the guns have their place in the arsenal. Yeah. And so if you then park the Romero and go to the Rival is now basically the average shotgun, right? So it's a little bit less range, a little bit less damage, reliability than the Romero has, but it has that second follow-up shot, so it still makes it a good average gun. And then moving forward, we have the Spectre, which now is going to be more of a like actual faster shooting weapon, so that there's a clear advantage now over the Rival. Yeah. Like not if you want to double tap, right? So as an ambush weapon, the Rival is actually still a better option. But the Spectre allows you to keep on pouring shots downrange at the guys, like we've seen with a couple of grunts there, without them necessarily getting to you. And then obviously the Auto 5 is going to be the end game weapon nonetheless, but with a tighter spread it has and the way we control the damage, it's much easier now to actually miss full shots just because the weapon jumps in your hands left and right. So taking your time, even with a semi-automatic like the Auto 5, and just aiming carefully, waiting for the aim to settle, rearrange the target, is still going to be more effective than just spamming. Exactly.
And no worries, chat. We'll take your questions at the end of the stream like usual, and then we'll get to stuff that you want to know.
The same thing we've done with the hand cannons, where we have a similar like economy now between them. So we have the Romero hand cannon obviously fulfilling the longer range option, so it's a little bit more range as a for hand cannon that is compared to let's say the Rival hand cannon or the Spectre hand cannon, which again have the same differences of either having a bit more ammunition or just having a double tap option. Yeah. Maybe interesting for this one is the hatchet. So to balance the hatchet, to make sure the actual normal Romero hand cannon actually has its place, The Romero hatchet is using the firing stats of the rival hand cannon.
Okay, yeah.
It just is basically a single barrel, but it does have in compensation the hatchet option.
And did the Crown and King get changed?
The Crown and King got changed with the accuracy and range changes, so systemically what we have there.
Yeah.
But again, it's mostly about not being able to hit all of the shots in quick succession just because the weapon jumps in your hand quite drastically.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's shotguns. Again, important point here. Give us feedback once you have a chance to get your hands on it. We will look carefully. We did a lot of testing. We feel against AI, shotguns have become more powerful, and that's what we want. So, like, you should be more reliably gunning down grunts, etc. If you already waste a shotgun shell on a grunt, like, at least it should have a proper effect.
Yeah.
But we made sure that against players, the actual experience is very similar, but more consistent with the changes. Again, we'll observe how people play with it, and if we do see, for example, a shotgun meta appear that dominates the weapons, rest assured that it's easy for us to do further adjustments to this, like how damage bleeds over distance, etc. But it's important that the shotguns finally have the RNG resolved, and that's the goal of this one.
Exactly. And then to the next change.
Next one, Winfield changes.
Winfield. So there are some people that have clear hate for the Winfield because of the spamming.
Yeah, so what we've done is we try to keep the Winfield mostly how they're supposed to be, which is a low recoil rapid fire weapon. That's just deny it what this thing is, right? But what we figured out is that just spamming shots downrange was a bit too easy. So we've done a couple of very subtle changes to it, and we just want to test the waters with this a little bit, see how people respond. So what we've done is on the basic Winfield C, so the 7-round version, we have just slightly increased the kick, the recoil kick of how much the weapon jumps up. It's not massive. It's still way below what, for example, like a Vetterli or a Mosin, etc. have, but it's a bit more noticeable, and also like it kind of kicks a little bit more and recovers left, right, which means it's a slightly bit more challenging to put the side right back on the target. So yes, you can spam. The fire rate hasn't been changed, but overall the challenge is just a nudge more difficult. Now on the full length Winfield, like the 15-round magazine one, we basically didn't touch the recoil up much, so it just systemically went up a little bit, but it's still, as per the previous tuning, is weaker than for the Winfield C, just because it's a heavier weapon. It has more ammunition inside, so it doesn't kick up as much as the lighter one does, but it's also harder to control, harder to keep on the target. So this one has a more drastic left-right movement after shots, so it's even more awkward to kind of keep it on the target or having to realign it. So again, those two changes, they shouldn't really touch what these weapons are, because their role is pretty clearly defined. They are rapid fire weapons of their time and era, at least. But we just make them a little bit harder to control, slightly less easy to spam with, and just see on the tester again how that goes.
Okay, and then straight through the revolvers.
Yes, revolver changes.
So quite similar in a sense to the Winfield changes.
Yes. So here the primary goal has been, again, to help differentiate between them a little bit better, that is. So what we want is that each of these revolvers have their pros and cons. They have their drawbacks, they have their strengths, and it's gonna be more of a preference choice for playstyle rather than like one being just inferior to another one.
The insta pick.
Yeah, exactly. Because people already crying out, like the uppercut wasn't changed at all for this, so this is primarily looking at like some of the base weapons. See, there it is.
Don't you dare touch it. And so we're like, nerf it.
The uppercut is exactly the same. There wasn't touch for this. This is primarily a second step for us introducing in the last update the packs. So we've already, with the last update, push the uppercut a little bit more into high recoil and push the basic core to a little bit more into like lower recoil, easier control, easier handling. And we're continuing that now just with the other weapons. So let's go through the list again. Let me just get my notes here. What have we done? Let's start with the officers. So we felt that the officer is a bit of an insta-pick when it comes to revolvers, and that is fair enough because it's a good weapon. We just felt that the double action and the handicap of having a double action, which is like the intensity of the trigger push and therefore keeping the weapon aligned on target, etc., was a bit too easy compared to, let's say, the basic Nagant. And we just increased slightly the recovery offset, so how the weapon kind of moves left-right after a shot, but also slightly the recoil, to give you a bit more of a challenge for actually putting that weapon on. You have the same fire rate, you have the same damage, etc. It's just that it's a slightly less awkward, but it should feel pretty much the same, and you can do the same you could do before with this gun. That also goes for, and that's maybe interesting in light of the Winfield changes we just talked about, this also goes for the carbine. So the Nagant Officer carbine, it has now more recoil, it kicks a bit more left-right. So what we see is a similar change as we've seen on the Winfields, just making it a bit harder to kind of
control,
keep on pouring like shots at the same target. Like it takes a bit more of a challenge, and we hope that this will actually help with this gun, also together with the Winfields, to reduce the spamminess in general of the weapons and return a bit more to precision aiming.
It's always funny when people are saying, that they're fine with like it penetrating, but like that it one-shots or headshots. It's crazy to them, especially considering back in the day, a Winfield, like a one-shot headshot was always a kill, and we removed that, and people were outraged. And now, like, they still do so much damage.
Yeah, I mean, 70 meters is like most compounds are not even 70 meters wide, right? Like so at least like in and around clues, boss arenas, etc. Hit with a Winfield is hit with a Winfield, like you die from a headshot.
Yeah.
Okay, so other pistol changes then. We also had a look at the Nagant Precision and the Nagant Deadeye. So a change that both of those are benefiting from is that we kind of smooth out a little bit the way the recoil kicks up. So you might have noticed that, like with the Winfields, for example, being a heavier weapon, having a weak cartridge inside, actually it's pretty gentle the way the weapon kicks up compared to, let's say, the Dolch, which is just much more violent, right? Yeah. So we kind of smoothed it out for those weapons for the same reasons. Like you have like the pistol stock, you kind of stabilize the weapon, and it's much more controllable, so it's a little bit smoother, it doesn't kick up as violently, and it just makes it a bit more interesting to shoot those, especially to follow-up shots. And specifically for the Nagant Precision, because that was one of those like problem weapons we had, like which people just wouldn't really use, because obviously there's already the handicap of a medium slot and kind of limitations of having either quartermaster or picking another medium weapon, but also like the rate of fire and being single action, there were enough good other options you might go for before. So what we've done here is we've kind of reduced the spread, so the weapon is a lot more accurate now. So if you just, for example, crouch with it, you can do some pretty decent headshots, even like 10, from 15, 20 meters distance, even just using the crosshairs with having go on einsights. But even in einsights, the weapon almost doesn't kick up at all anymore. Like it's the shoulder stock allows you to soften it up. So this becomes actually a pretty viable mid-range, cheap sniper option, with a Deadeye obviously having then a drawback of maybe not so good peripheral view because of the scope, but with a bit more, a bit more zoom on it. So that's one thing. Then we also looked at the Nagant silencer. Oh, yes.
Is that getting a buff?
Secret.
Hey, you never told me anything about this.
No, this is something that only made it in the last
secret, guys.
Always. So what we've done on the Nagant silencer is the base damage is the same as for the basic Nagant, but the silenced bullet, that is basically a lower yield bullet, is like less power in it, just bleeds the damage much faster. Like it drops damage much earlier. So in short range firefights, it is just as effective as a normal Nagant. It's just that the moment you still start shooting over distance, as it is right now, like the weapon just loses its power very quickly. But
so
it means
say it's stronger now.
It is a bit stronger by default.
Good. I like that. We all like this.
Just still, please don't try sniping people over 20-30 meters with it, because
confirmed. Dennis is sharing secrets with Ice, but not with me.
Well, Ice has been helping with the changelog, I think, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And then the last one here, actually no, it's two more on the pistol. So the chain pistol. So the chain pistol always felt like a natural step up from the basic Caldwell. Why would I take the normal Caldwell, even without fanning?
Yes.
Because I could just have the chain pistol, which has like 17 rounds or something, compared to the 6 of the basic weapon. So what we've done now is that on the chain pistol, that the basic crosshair spread is a little bit wider, so the weapon is less accurate. but obviously it benefits from slightly reduced recoil because it is a heavier weapon, right? The chain belts thingy that kind of drags the weapon down, so it's easier to control. But also, obviously, the fanning rate of fire and all of the other drawbacks we've already put between these guns are still in effect. And that brings us to the last point, the basic Caldwell. So we've already reduced the recoil in the last update when we introduced the packs, but we've also now given it even more accuracy. So this weapon with a longer barrel it has compared to, for example, an Nagant, is just a more viable option for like mid-range basic shooting.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. That's it, I think, for mostly weapon-related stuff. I mean, we also did a couple of changes to pricing of some of the weapons. I mean, this is again in response to us having introduced free hunters, having introduced quick play, having introduced weapon swapping, so that some of the balance that we had originally in the economy, like where we wanted to make sure there's always some easy, cheap options available, like the Romero, like the basic Caldwell, we no longer need that. So which means the prices, especially with these changes for balancing to give each of these guns more of room in the arsenal, have been slightly increased. Not much, just here and there a little bit. You will be able to go through all of that in the changelog once it's out, and then debate and give us feedback. And it shouldn't really matter too much though for these early guns. It's just that we felt like for Romero, especially with the changes we've done to it, like $4 was just a bit of a steal. So it costs a little bit more now.
Okay. Next, refactored animal traps.
Yes, so this is something that we started in light of our optimization path. So like on the level side, just like the way certain assets like our animal traps were costing us. And while doing that, we also looked at the logic behind them. So we kind of looked at inconsistencies we had with them in terms of like the trigger distances on general behavior stuff. And so basically we done like a full pass on those, tuning them a little bit more, trying to obviously keep the spirit of their design alive. Like, so a horse, when you get closer, still does the same thing as it does right now. But it's a bit more consistent with the ravens, a bit more consistent with the dogs, etc. So everything has been refactored slightly. And that is mostly down to how they escalate. So, for example, there were basically almost no ways for you to not escalate them.
Especially the horse.
Especially the horse.
The poor horse, it just wants to piano out his suffering.
So basically the rule now is that the moment you kind of stop, the moment you go crouch, you have a pretty safe way of avoiding them. Obviously up to a certain range. When you're really close, where they would start, like still go off or start barking or doing the horse thing. Possibly kicking you. But overall, it's a bit more reliable. Like they kind of aggro, de-aggro a little bit more consistently, and just feels a little bit better. It's hard to explain that right now without proper video. So again, it's one of those things. We just urge you to have a quick look at the test server when it's live, and just give us some feedback there, how it feels, if the ranges are good, etc. There's one more thing with the horse specifically, though, and that's something which isn't really down to awareness, but more to toughness. Yeah. So we felt the horse was a bit too weak. So like you would just punch it once, or just like throw a knife anywhere.
Do anything. It was like dead.
So what we've done with the horse specifically is we've given it body damage multipliers similar to AI. Yeah. So the head and the rest of the body is tuned separately, which means I need to have like 2 throwing knives possibly to the body of the horse. But if I hit it in the head, then one strike, one pistol shot whatsoever is going to be just enough. So it becomes a little bit harder to take out. It's because at the moment it feels sometimes it's just an afterthought. Like you see a horse and just throw the knife, and then it doesn't. Yeah, you will always hit it somewhere. And now at least you need to be a bit more considerate about where you hit it, and either accept it might just be going crazy for like a second before you throw the second knife or do the second shot. Or in this case, accept that you need to aim for the head. It's actually interesting because like something like the Sparks silencer would still be able to kill it in one shot. Yeah. While the Winfield silencer or the Nagant silencer would need to have 2 body shots now.
I mean, it makes sense, right? Because look at how the horse is already looking. Like that one like stab, and it's not going to kill him. He's already half dead. So yeah. All
right. I think that's mostly about the animal traps. I mean, again, play them. Give us feedback, try them out, and we hope they're more consistent, they're clearer to read now, and actually feeling like a next step from their iteration.
Yes.
Then a couple other things. So we have added body destruction on the meatheads. So the meathead was the one AI that didn't really have body destructibility. Yep. So what we mean with that is I kill, for example, a grunt with a shot to the leg, and I might take the leg off with that kill shot.
Or his head blows off.
Yeah, or we have damage state as I hit him, I do some glancing shots on the arms, etc., and something happens. Now, we've introduced that same system now for the meathead finally, which means you can actually, depending on the weapons you use, like dynamite, etc., just get like a bit more, visual feedback on the kill. Let's be diplomatic about how we call that.
Yeah.
And what we didn't introduce is a limping mechanic, so we don't have what we have on the armored and the grunts, that it's slower because it's always following your specific logic, not having a head. So we kind of kept that in, and it's kind of acceptable. It's a big, like meaty, chunky legs anyway, so it's not that easy to take them out like the skinny grunts. But you will at least see when you shoot him like with a shotgun, you kill him with a shotgun, that leg or that arm might go off as well.
Yeah.
It's just visual, nothing gameplay related, but it's more consistent.
Something small from the art team to make it all look nicer as well.
Yep.
More realistic.
Then another thing we did was body damage tweaks on the Hellhounds. So this is a minor thing. It just means that we had some inconsistencies between some of the weapons in terms of how they could do one-hit headshots, etc. So we can adjust that. For the most part, they feel exactly like in the last update. It's just that some weapons that were a bit too easy on them just might require at a certain distance maybe a second shot.
Yeah.
Like, so for example, it was like that, like some of the compact bullets were able to headshot in one go, like a bit too far out, or same with the medium bullets, which was almost like things like 80-90 meters or so. This has all been adjusted, tweaked a little bit, and just feels a bit more consistent.
Exactly. And I mean, I think since we changed them, they have been already like a bit less of a danger. Like it wasn't always like, okay, Hounds, you're dead. Now it's like
the locomotion changes we've done to them, like so the way the quad pad behaviors, they feel better, in our opinion. They play better, and they take a bit off some of the early game frustration, specifically for new players, out by just working a little bit different from what they were originally.
Exactly. And then we're getting closer and closer.
Ooh, the spider. So this one is actually an interesting one because so there's a lot of really awesome hard work going in this. We've gone back to the spider and had a look at how it moves around.
Yes.
And did some minor balancing changes around it as well. So in a nutshell, the spider moves slightly slower now, but it actually aligns very nicely now to the walls, the ceilings, etc. And in order to compensate for that, we looked a little bit at the attack frequency, attack patterns, etc. And let's show a video about it. You want to do it?
Yeah.
So what we see right now is the spider nicely curving around corners. So this is obviously a test environment here. It's the easiest way to show it.
This is the map now.
Lurking around and just being more spidery, which can be good and bad, I guess, depending on who you ask. It feels a lot nicer. It feels more predictable. It feels actually
less than you're actually constantly running after him for the sake of running after him.
Yes, and it will also come after you. Come after you like a bit more frequent. So slight improvement. We feel that the spider feels a lot creepier actually because of it, because you actually can see more of it now.
Yeah.
But gameplay wise, we've kind of compensated for the slower speed with having just a little bit different behavior changes, bit more attacks, etc. So the challenge should be roughly the same, but overall it's a bit more rewarding.
Okay.
I think that's the big chunk of stuff we got through today.
Is it? I do think that we are going to talk about something that you have seen before.
Yes.
So we're going to quickly switch people in and out while you guys watch something that I totally did not almost showed for a second before. So I hope you... Wrong mouse. There's too many mice.
And then we'll be back for Q&A together afterwards.
Yes, yeah.
On the couch. First time on the couch. Yay.
Okay, so I am going to quickly do two things. I'm going to go and turn off this for now. And mute the microphone. There's audio now. What are you guys talking about? Let's look at it again with us. There is sound. I can see that there's sound. You guys are lying to me. Stop lying to me. There's definitely sound. Don't you lie. There's sound. Let's look at it again. One more time. It's a little quiet. Let me just turn it up more. Loud enough? Dennis looks a little different. Okay, so
hey guys.
we got a new person on the stream right now. This is not Dennis. They both have the same colored hair, but it's...
I'm blonde Dennis.
Maybe this is like Dennis from the past. Like you're
young Dennis, yeah.
You're young Dennis.
Young and handsome.
Young and handsome. Okay, so we're gonna talk about the Immolator. Obviously, you have, if you've seen the blog already, you have seen our blog about our new special AI.
Yes, exactly. So, hi guys, I'm Ben. I've worked as a technical designer on the Emulator, and I'm gonna talk about how we created this new AI, what's our intent with it, and what he actually does. We already released the blog yesterday,
Yeah.
Which you can read. It's mostly about the intentions and the art side as well, so make sure to check that out. And before we get into the details of what he does, I want to kind of give you an overview of how we design AI, what are the core principles that we set out for the Emulator, and then you will understand our thought process a bit better.
Yeah.
So basically, when we create a new AI, we look at the current AI cast and
Variety, what they lack.
yeah, exactly. Identify areas where we can improve, areas where we are lacking a bit. And for the Emulator, it was basically two core things that we wanted to tackle. Mm-hmm. One was predictability. So the current AI cast that we have is quite predictable. If you think about it, they are basically living in a small area. They don't really move anywhere. You go there, they react to you, and then you have to tackle the challenge, which is, yeah, super nice. But we wanted to change this up a bit to make it a bit more engaging for the players.
It's engaging.
Yeah, it is engaging indeed. Basically, what we went for is more like controlled chaos. So the game is obviously like super tactical.
How does one control chaos?
Yeah, well, you'll see. You'll see.
Opposite. Like we control the chaos.
Yeah, it is. It is pretty chaotic. It can get pretty hectic, but we want it to be a player choice. So we don't want the Emulator to be completely random and just track the player whenever. We want it to be kind of like player-driven experience still. And the second principle that we wanted to do was basically to introduce more like sand in the sandbox, if that makes any sense. So the Emulator interacts with the world. It's not completely disconnected as most of the AI cast, and it interacts with other AI as well. So without further ado, get into what he can do.
Yeah, so which one do you want to watch first?
I'll talk a bit first, and then I'll talk about key characteristics, and then we will show a few videos to
Okay, I thought you weren't already talking.
better explain how it actually looks in game. So basically, he's super fast. That's one of his key traits. That's something that we came up with pretty early, and it works really nice. I already saw on Discord yesterday that people were saying, "Oh, but the Grunt and the Armored are pretty fast as well."
Pretty fast? No, it's like
yeah,
fast.
they are not fast. The Emulator is fast. It can see pretty far away as well, so he will see you from much further away
Yeah,
than...
it's Dennis. Dennis.
Yeah, it's
Young
Dennis.
Den.
Yeah. So he will see you from much further away than the other AI cast members will. And he will be always up in your face. Basically, the Emulator is a dude you will have to deal with. He is quick, he reacts to you very quickly, and he's up in your face, and he will not let go of you if you don't deal with him. Bennis, that's pretty good. And there is one big thing that we didn't show yet, but you almost spoiled it. Well, you kind of did, but they didn't say it, it's fine.
Well, that was this. This was the one, or the video. The teaser was the one that I accidentally almost showed.
Okay, yeah. So basically, when you meet him in the world, he will be in his non-ignited state, which means basically he's just walking around. He's not on fire, but he is like this tormented soul that is ready to jump on you.
So quite similar to that, like a little bit before this. Here it's already like smoldering.
Yeah. He's kind of like smoldering. And the player can ignite him. But he doesn't ignite on his own. It's always a player action, so you guys will not see like flaming dudes running around randomly. It will be your choice to ignite him. And we basically have a basic rule set that's pretty simple of how you can ignite him or what ignites him. So thematically, here's this charcoaled body basically that's completely burned down.
Yeah, it's actually very interesting if you watch or read the blog. There are some pictures on how they came up with like the sculpting of and the more of the design, like the the art design of the character. So definitely read the blog if you're interested.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, if you pierce his body with any weapon that pierces through the skin thematically, he will immediately go into a rage and he will explode, dealing explosion damage. And then from that point on, he will be ignited, he will be on fire, and whatever he touches will be also on fire. He will also leave a fire trail behind him when he's ignited, so you'll see him like racing around and leaving fire trail and chaos behind him. It's actually quite cool. And so just to clarify what pierces his body, basically.
Exactly.
We have a video for it to kind of showcase the rule set.
Oh. I hate how it doesn't open on the right screen. Where can you move your...
Yeah.
Can't see anything.
Okay, so basically, first I use the Obras Mace, which is a pretty strong weapon against the Immolator. Okay. I walk up to him. You can see, guys, he's not ignited in this instance. He runs at me. And I can use a blunt weapon, which does not pierce his body.
I thought we just announced a blunt weapon. Oh, yeah, it was the mace. It works.
Yes, exactly. So it didn't pierce his body, therefore it didn't ignite. Now I use a knife, which is not a good idea, guys. It will ignite, it will deal some explosion damage, he will hit you, he will be up in your face, it will be super scary.
And you're on fire.
And now I will show you how it works with guns. So I land a nice headshot here after 10 seconds of aiming. He ignites because I pierced his body. And then I completely miss, obviously on purpose, and then he's dead. So, the takeaway from this is blunt weapons hard counter him. Like, we introduced the Obras Maze, it's amazing against the Emulator and in general as well. But we have already the Dusters, we have the Officer Brawler, which is...
The Combat Axe also is blunt, right? The Combat Axe?
The Combat Axe is not. The Combat Axe is slash damage.
Oh, it's slash, okay.
Yeah, so basically, you can use the rifle butt stock if he's really up in your face. You can stagger him, take a step back, shoot at him, see him explode, and then just basically kill him. It sounds really OP. I know, but it is not. So
it used to be so strong. Like, I still remember the first playtest we did with it, and it just didn't die. And you were like shooting headshots, and it's like, why is it still not dead? Ah!
Yeah, we toned that down quite a bit actually. So he doesn't deal much damage. The explosion is scary, but it barely deals any damage. If you are 2-3 meters away from him, you might get clipped with 10-20 damage maybe. He sets you on fire, but fire has been nerfed because when you now stop the burning, it pauses the actual fire damage. He's more like doing this psychological warfare of, him burning and up in your face and quickly attacking you, and you don't know what to do. You'll panic, and then that's when the problems actually start. Now, he ignites stuff, right? He's like this super strong dude who comes at you, which is fine, but this is not the end of it. What we wanted to do with him is to kind of like make him interact with the world a bit better. So he's got a behavior which is quite new to the AI cast, which is like the unreachable behavior. When you ignite him from far away, or you ignite him from a place where he cannot reach you, which can be you climb a ladder and then you shoot him, or you jump on a haystack and then you shoot him. He will not just stand there as the rest of the aircast, like the grunts and the armors. He will actually do something, because he's like, he's in pain, he's crazy, he wants to hurt someone, and he just wants to run around. And when he's on fire, we'll show a video in a second. When he's on fire, he will actually run around. You can see he ignited an oil barrel there. There are some explosions. It draws all the other AI cast members to him. You will see the grunts walking through the fire, dying.
He's a grunt murderer.
Yeah, basically. So you can use him as a distraction. You can use him to maybe box in some people. You ignite him, and then he will go crazy and kill stuff. You can see he runs inside the building where he again murders some AI, as you can hear it from the screams. It's actually quite cool. So he basically runs around the world. He drops these fire patches. Here we can see I'm unreachable. I shoot him, boom, he ignites, and then he will go crazy and systemically kill other AI. Basically, you can kill him to kind of, or you can shoot him to kind of wipe out compounds if you want to, but it will make a lot of noise.
FPS is weird because of the way we recorded it and had to re-edit it and like convert. No worries, the FPS is good when you play.
Yeah, he doesn't kill the FPS. Sorry guys,
No.
it's poor video. Yeah, so basically he interacts with everything around him. He sets everything on fire. It's pretty systemic, and you can use it if for example, we had some cool moments where this is wait for it.
Yeah. It does not do this at all.
Where we had some playtest and he was hitting at another player, and you might not actually want to shoot at the player, but you want to shoot at the Immolator because it is just way too scary. You don't know what's going on. He ignites, he explodes, he's up in your face, hitting you, and it's super nice.
Yeah, I really like it. I think it's a very unique and interesting. You know, he can do a lot besides just murdering you.
Yeah,
which is nice. So,
and there is one more thing that I want to show you. So you might think, okay, the Immolator is, this scary dude, runs fast. So you might want to run inside the building, close the door, and
just like you could do with the other AI.
Yeah, but let's just watch this quickly and see how it goes.
Is the sound again? Is it muted again? I don't know how to. No,
it's fine.
Oh, okay,
it's fine.
Not sure if there's sound. No,
yeah. So knock knock.
I don't hear sound.
Maybe running inside the building is not the best thing you can do anymore.
Oh my god!
It's fine. We do it without sound. You guys can imagine. He's pretty scary.
I don't hear. I think the video doesn't have any sound.
It should have. I think it doesn't matter.
Oh.
So
knock knock.
So basically, closing a door might not work anymore. You can still barricade the door. You can see I didn't barricade the door here. If you barricade the door, he will not be able to break it. But if you don't, then you might have some problems. I knew he was coming, and he still damaged me, so that's pretty nice. So basically, with all these new features that don't exist in the rest of the AI cast, we think he's in a pretty special place right now. We try out the door, for example, and if it works out, we might need to think about how can we apply it to some other AI cast members. Hint, hint. Yeah, so that kind of sums up what he does, how he can interact with the world, but obviously because he's so chaotic, he runs around, it's really difficult to define of what he can actually do. I think there will be a lot of cool moments where you guys just play around with him and see what he does. And that is kind of our goal. We don't want the game to be much more difficult with the Emulator. That was not the goal. It might seem like he's more difficult than the rest of the AI cast members, but we don't want to increase difficulty. We want to introduce new sort of challenges to the game. So you have to adapt to that, and it might be a bit more difficult in the beginning, but you will see that once you get used to him, and if you pay attention to him, you can tame him. You can tame him. You can tame him.
You can make him his friends. Make him do things for you.
Yes, and just to give you a bit of background information, so the first thing we decided on when designing the Emulator was to kind of counter the knife meta, because it was really strong. At the moment, you can practically knife every AI, maybe not the meathead, but even if you burn him a bit, you can knife him. You can knife the armored, grunts, hives, etc. And the dusters don't really have a place in the game. And since we are playing with the Emulator, I take dusters more often than I take the knife, because I know there will be a time when the dusters will be more useful than the knife.
Exactly. So the Immolator. Yeah,
so I hope I was able to give a good overview of what he does, how he behaves, what are the core design ideas that we wanted to do. What I asked you guys is to go play on a test server.
When it's live.
It's
coming soon.
I don't know when exactly. I know. Okay, anyway. Play on the test server. And give me feedback. Leave it on Reddit, on Discord, on Steam forums, whatever.
All the places.
All the places. I read everything every morning.
He reads everything every morning. Yeah. And Steam, and Reddit, and...
Yeah, basically I read Reddit, Steam forums, and the negative reviews on Steam. But don't do that. Don't leave that.
Only
positives, okay? And let me know if you like him, what you like about him, what you don't like about him. He's kind of I want him to grow with you guys. I want him to do stuff that you like him to do.
We want you to nurture him.
Yeah, exactly. Tame him.
Tame
him, yeah. So please play as much as you can. Make some videos, make some posts. Give me your feedback and see how it goes.
Exactly. Okay, so we're going to switch to the couch and we'll be back in a little bit with both Dennis and Bennis for some more questions. So get your questions ready and ask them when we're back. See you guys in a little sec. Hello, you can talk. We're back.
Ooh, we're back.
Hey guys.
See if we're even on camera.
Yeah. We really need like initial proof.
Are you supposed to see something there, or?
No, I mean we see the chat. So
Okay, just the chat. So we just hope everybody's here. Okay.
Yeah, no. They can see us, right? You guys can see us, right? Like, say bananas if you can see us and hear us. Dennis is relaxing. Yeah, he picked the nice. Like this one is like very deep, so it's like especially my size. It's like.
It's good for taking a nap.
Yeah, that is true. So we have Dennis and Ben, or Bennis and Dennis, and we're gonna do some Q&A.
Just Bennis.
That's a thing now. Thank you.
You guys are. It's a thing. So what questions do you have in relation to our 5.0 update? Obviously, Immolator questions are for.
There was one. Will the Emulator go through water? Good question. So he will go through water, yes. So the rule set for that, when he's ignited and he goes into shallow water, nothing really happens because the water is shallow. But when he goes into deep water, he will be extinguished.
Oh.
Same mechanic as for the players when they run through water.
Yes, exactly. So he will have to run a bit in the water to make some splashes to make him extinguish, and then you will not be able to reignite him inside the water. But once you're outside of the water, you will reignite him if you want.
So it's actually a valid tactic to drag him into the water.
It is a valid tactic, yes.
There was another question that I'm actually, because I know that a lot of people ask this. When can he also mess with bosses?
Mess with bosses.
As in interact with.
So basically, the butcher, as you know, guys, is immune to fire. So it makes it difficult to mess with him, and also he's super strong. But with the spider, we actually had a playtest session where I had an Immolator inside the building, and it was scary, and I ignited him, and the explosion ignited the spider, and it was super cool. Yeah. So
okay, so it is possible. I mean, I assume it's tricky. But...
Yeah, if you are not a coward and you can drag an Immolator inside the building without panicking, then
Dying.
Sure, go for it, guys. Make a video of it. I want to see it.
Okay, challenge accepted. What other questions? Oh, someone asked how much XP it costs to kill him. Or
That's
how much
a good
XP?
question. I think it's comparable to an armored on a hive, roughly around that area.
Yeah. So the other special AI. So my question is, what if the clue starts flickering like it goes crazy when the enemy is under a certain distance? So I assume that you mean with the anti-camping feature?
Anti-camping stuff, yeah.
It is indeed a certain distance. So
Yes.
within about half a compound, it will flicker red if you see the clue.
So that means obviously if someone, let's assume someone is up on the tower at Family Grave, Blanchard Graves, and he's looking towards the boathouse area, right? Like Lock Bay Docks. What we will not be able to do in this case, if the guy has a sniper rifle and he sees exactly that clue there, you wouldn't know that this guy is looking at this. This only works within a certain distance, a certain range. So it's not 100% guaranteed that there will be no one maybe outside of that distance waiting, camping. But obviously it's going to be much harder for that person also in order to score a hit than if you were sitting with a shotgun around the corner.
Yeah.
Like the one guy I didn't see on your screenshot.
Yeah, exactly. There was one question. If an Immolator, where was it? If an Immolator ignited and he kills another, if you ignited an Immolator and an Immolator like kills someone with his fire, who gets the kill?
Okay, so the rule as of now is if you ignite an Immolator and the explosion during the ignition kills another AI, you get the experience for that.
Okay.
If the Immolator runs around and randomly massacres 20 grunts, you will not get the experience for it, but it will make it easier to go inside the compound. And also there is one thing that I might not have mentioned and is super important with the Immolator, is that once you ignite him, he's got a lifetime.
Yes.
And the lifetime is 30 seconds, and when it ends, he will basically burn out, he will die, he will be, over. It's kind of like a mercy kill for him because he's suffering, he's on fire, running around, doing crazy stuff, but after 30 seconds his end will come, and he will die, so he will not indefinitely run around the compound and kill everything.
So much fun, though.
There's 3 questions there which are all the same questions. Syringe is broken as hell, Wither shot, fix healing bug.
Yeah.
So we have, as part of 5.0, we have a tentative fix. We have taken another chance looking at this, and we think we found something that could be related to it. There's no guarantee, so we will only be able to see that on the test server, whether this fix is actually working, as we have a chance to expose this to a wider audience, you guys. So go to the test server.
Please test it, let us know if it works.
And if everything works out, then we are hopeful this is fixed. If not, then we have to go back and actually use additional logging that we've also released now with 5.0. Then that will be on the test server that allows us to track this down, hopefully a bit more reliably in case it is still a different issue.
Yeah.
So we're making progress on that, and we are carefully optimistic that for a 5.0 we can get this back under control.
Yes. Okay, so there's one thing I have to say. I know it might disappoint a lot of people. It's not directly related to 5.0, but we know a lot of people ask for a werewolf boss. And I would have to address this. We are working on a new boss, but it's not a werewolf as much as you guys like it, but it is something else really cool that you guys will see at a later date. So I don't want to kill anyone's dreams, but I just did. And I had to do it. But yeah, we want something, obviously when we make something, we want something to be very unique. And we are still, we have our own lore in the sense of that not everything is directly, defined by law. So there is something cool coming, but I can't say where. So I'm sorry for ruining your dreams. I had to take one for the team. So I saw someone asked a question a little bit earlier about the spider movement, that if it doesn't interrupt the kills, if it goes awkwardly around the corner like it used to, does it still do that? I don't know. Yeah, if you ask that question, please ask it again. I know it was something about the spider that it was it interrupted the kill or you couldn't hit it anymore or something. Okay,
I think this might be related to when you finish off the spider.
Oh, that it keeps running.
Yeah, so the reason for that is primarily that we can't rely on it falling down and have gravity bring it to a place of happiness where we can reach it. So we need to kind of make it walk to its death. So that means...
Oh, here. Can we actually interrupt its attacks again?
You can do that on live already. You just need to hit it.
Your stomach just growled.
Sorry.
Let me see. What other questions do you guys have for 5.0? An overall. Is there plans to do an overall animation pass? And it went by. Is there plan to do an overall animation pass in the future?
I mean, so as we're going from patch to patch through the early access period, obviously polish is an important point for us, so we always go back to specific old weapons, old enemies, etc. We update them. You've seen us with the Hellhound update from a previous update, right? Yeah. Where we went to the quad locomotion. We've seen it with the spider now.
So we are doing
Excuse
that.
me. So in general, like going back through stuff, fixing things, smaller bugs, etc., which might not be like the most important things to address right now,
Yeah.
but obviously important to get back this feeling of a complete game and polish in. We'll address those over time and step by step, depending on the time we have available. But obviously, if you want me to choose between showing you guys a new boss and then obviously getting the animations for that and showing you guys like a fix of, let's say, a hammer of a pistol not being fully in sync with a finger, I think you guys would appreciate seeing more about that boss.
Okay, I remember 2 questions. One question, I'll just say them now. One question is, will the emulator also be in quick play?
Yes, definitely.
Yes, and can you slow the emulator down by shooting in his leg? No, I think
no. So the Immolator is this crazy dude who doesn't care about pain because he's suffering so much. You can't stop him. He's basically charging at you. You will, however, be able to knock him down with shotguns.
Yes.
Shotguns are overwhelming force, and if you shoot at the Immolator, he will be knocked back.
Yes.
Okay, so knockback. Are you planning to re-add the slider? I think I asked about that for like the HUD for the boss icons to like make them 100% opacity again, but I'll have to re-ask that. Please ask me that again on the Discord.
I can answer that.
Oh, you asked? Perfect.
So we introduced that, and the problem we had with it was that, as you know, like the some of our icons are complicated multi-layer icons, right? So you have different elements, and by having a transparency slider on them, there are certain elements that are not visible normally, but would become visible to you as you kind of make them opaque or increase the opacity of them. And we decided that this is just it looks just bad. And
well, it's more because I know why they're asking it. They like to record videos in like the 4K, so they like the ability to not have the icons.
For that purpose, rather than a slider,
they would like a toggle. A toggle is fine.
A toggle is something we can, I'm pretty sure, talk about for future updates. So that, like a HUD off type of mode thing.
Exactly.
That might be possible. Just the slider is problematic because of the opacity issue. That certain elements just don't look good depending on the setting.
Exactly.
I see an Emulator question about the health. So how much health does the Emulator have compared to the armored? In the clip, I used 3 long bullets to kill him because I was very good and I missed the second shot. So basically, he's somewhere in between. He's weaker than the armored. You can 2-shot him with long bullet, but you can also 2-shot him with compact if you hit the head twice.
Yes.
So basically, he's a bit stronger against melee steps, but he's very susceptible to bullet damage, be it compact, medium, or long.
If you can hit him, because that guy is fast.
Yeah.
That is also true, yes.
Is the emulator able to break down the double sliding doors?
No, so he cannot break it, he will knock on it, which will knock. Yeah.
Hello, selling some goods.
Who
would like to buy some fire?
He has some minor intelligence in his head, so he will realize after a while that he cannot break it. So he will go on and then do some crazy stuff somewhere else.
He's gonna sell his goods somewhere like next door.
There's a question whether the Bornheim that's in the pistol
I saw that.
Is gonna make the weapon obsolete or useless.
Well, it's gonna make the officer useless or just obsolete.
Yeah, exactly, and neither is the case. So. The officer is a much more flexible weapon. It's easy to reload, just top up the rounds in there. Doesn't suffer from like ejecting rounds and then having to have bullet rubber again. Plus it also carries like 2 more rounds compared to the 5 rounds in the Bornheim. Now the Bornheim is very fast shooting. It's faster shooting than the officer, and it's a really fun gun to use. It really is the Dolch's little cousin.
Yeah.
But it does have its place alongside the Dolch and alongside the officer. It has different pros and different cons, and I'm pretty sure it comes also down a little bit to whether you would like to actually just fire all the shots you have in a quick succession, but then having to go through the reload, or whether you try to be a bit more economic and maybe doing like more like 2-3 shots here, 1 shot there, etc. type of like burst fire.
Yeah. 2 questions for Emulator. Will the Emulator set off animal attractors, and what is the trigger range on the Emulators, and where do they spawn usually?
Okay, so the trigger range, I'll let you guys figure that out instead of giving concrete meters. It sits somewhere with the dogs, if you want to.
But can he interact with the
Oh, so the animal
pages?
attractors basically.
Can he light them on fire?
He can kill them. don't hold me to this, because with the old system we refactored the enemy attractors now, so they are a bit more, they work a bit differently. But the old system, if he runs through ravens, he actually killed them before the ravens could fly away.
Okay.
The ranges change a little bit, like the activation, so we have to actually try it out. Actually,
let me go, guys.
You guys should try it out.
I'm very curious. We should just have some like emulator challenges, like do the craziest thing with the emulator.
They are added, so we do have challenges for the emulator now.
We have challenges for the emulator, indeed. There was one question I wanted to answer quickly. So can you burn the emulator, or can you throw a lantern at the emulator and kill him? So basically, if you throw a lantern at the emulator, he will not ignite, because the lantern deals blunt damage on impact. Blunt doesn't ignite him, and he's immune to fire. So basically, you will not be able to ignite him with word fires or any sort of like firebomb fires.
You have to pierce the skin.
You have to pierce the skin, indeed, yes. And there was another question. So the question was something like, if the emulator is not ignited, is there still a 30-second rule on the lifetime? No. So he will only die due to lifetime problems if he's ignited.
If he runs out of fuel, basically.
If he runs out of fuel, exactly.
Someone says, do we also have an AI in the works going forward that can climb ladders? Because we have the emulator now.
At the moment, no plans for that. But
no new music, no new menu music, but we do have the ability to listen to the menu music when you're not in the game. I know that was something that was requested from your community, and that should be in as well. Let's see. Someone is asking if we get more melee weapons.
Well, there's still one melee weapon that I think I've seen a couple of questions about, which is the bomb lance. And eventually that will come. More about that in a later stream. Sorry.
Will the emulator only spawn in compounds? This is a good question. So the emulator will spawn around compounds and inside in some bigger compounds as well. He will not spawn inside buildings usually, and he's basically, he needs to cover a lot of ground to be effective. So you will see him around compounds in big open areas where you can spot him, you can hear him, and then you can react to him rather than just turning a corner and there's an emulator here. What do I do? Which might actually also happen, but it will be rare.
Okay. The good thing is that he's a bit more flexible than, for example, a pack of hellhounds that you can also encounter him inside compounds, and specifically all the systematic like barrels, all the stuff around that he can do a lot more havoc in these areas than he can do outside.
I saw a question, if I can completely remember, can you run while reloading the Obras mace?
You can, just like with any other weapon, yes.
I think it was the cycling.
Or the cycling. So that's a systemic issue. So all of the bolt action weapons suffer from the same issue there, which, as you know, is that if you are aiming down sights, for example, you might, if you don't let go of the button in time, be stuck to this, and therefore also be stuck to the movement speed and can't override this with a sprint. This is something we want to fix. It's something which sits a little bit deeper inside the weapon system, how it interacts with the player. So this is something we still want to do. At the moment, obviously, the Obras mace follows the same logic as the other weapons, so it still suffers from the same issue. Now, one thing that people can try out in order to reduce the effect of this particular problem is if you change your aiming down sights from a toggle to a hold action. So if you just keep on pressing the button down, and the moment you fired your shot, you let go of both the shift button for ADSing and the right mouse button for aiming, it goes first to shoulder or to the hip pose where it does the cycling, and from that you can already start sprinting. So this is a clunky workaround, but it helps if you do the timing correctly to avoid the issue to a certain degree. But obviously this is not the desired solution we wanted to work properly. Yeah. It's just that we didn't have a chance to fix that yet.
Okay. I know that I see some people ask about something that have been asking for a while. It's not for 5.0, but it is something that we're investigating, and that's a field of view slider. Yeah. So
it's being investigated. We said it in previous streams already. It's just that we can't give an ETA on it yet, but it's something.
We are definitely looking into it.
When we talk about it, don't expect a full fishbowl effect type of slider. If that ever goes that far, it's going to be within a certain range and certain limitations, obviously.
Yes.
And to make this a reasonable addition, if we have a chance to edit.
Exactly. Let's see. There was some. Can you set off a emulator with decoys?
Good question.
I honestly think you guys should trade it yourself.
So they will be able to.
So with
very soon.
With the normal decoys, you will not be able to set them off because they are run damage. With the blank fire decoys, let me know how it goes. Try it out.
Talk about us later if you're alive or dead. Let's see. Yes, 5.0 will go on test first, and then it will go live after we've, gotten people's feedback and seen how it does. When it's going on test, soon.
Yeah.
I can't give the exact
Not today,
No.
that we can say for sure.
We wanted it to, but
we ran into some issues with the deployment. It's being looked at the moment, but we are hopeful that possibly before the weekend, so that means sometime tomorrow, if everything works out, we will have it on the test.
But that's no promise.
No promise.
Don't hold us to it. But yeah, we're doing the best to get it.
It looks reasonable that we can achieve that.
Let's see.
So if the emulator is immune to fire, is he immune to explosive damage as well? So no, not really. So explosives like a frag grenade, they have shrapnels in them, which will hit the body, which will pierce the body, which will in reaction set off of the explosion as well.
Shockwave of a dynamite just rips you open.
Yes, exactly. Will more than one emulator spawn in a given spot? So the emulator is a solo dude. He doesn't really make friends that well. So hopefully you will only see one at each spot. If you see two at the same spot, please report it to us. We don't think this will be the case, but you should mostly spawn alone. Yes.
I mean, there might be multiple in the same compound.
Yes.
And depending on how they move around, how you make them move around, because obviously you can kind of aggro them, there could be multiple ending up in the same combat situation.
Yes, exactly.
But they wouldn't spawn as packs, at least.
Yes.
I saw someone ask, it's like hard to remember when I don't see the question anymore. Oh, someone asked about the lamp. We actually shown that we're making the lamp more useful by having the ability to shine. Oh, and that was actually a question that I saw again earlier when we showed that. If I'm remembering things. Will it also work indoors?
It does work indoors.
Or during daytime, sorry, my bad.
So it does not work very well in daytime. So it's basically systemic light, which means it's most effective at nighttime. It can work in some really dark areas in the map during a daytime mission, but it's most effective during night, and that's where we also expect people to being more likely to bring along.
Yes. Okay. What ammo does the new Dulce Jr. use?
The Dulce Jr. The Bornheim. So the Bornheim is using compact ammunition, 5 rounds, being fed from either a 5-round stripper clip you insert to the side, or topped up individually from the top if the bolt is open. If you pull back the slide, similar to how the Dolce operates. And with all the pros and cons that brings of having one of the earliest semi-automatic pistols ever invented in the game.
Yeah. Any plans on clarifying what exactly the weapon stats mean? Range rating of 70 meters means what?
Yes,
so that would just explain also.
Okay, so we talked about this in some of the previous streams, that the way we currently have comparative weapon stats in the shop, for example, in the arsenal, is on a very abstract level, right? So these values don't correlate with actual ranges or actual damage values or whatsoever. It's just abstract numbers that allow you to kind of say, like, this one is a little bit better than the other one. Now, we're not happy with that system either, and something I said earlier in the stream, we're currently looking in how we kind of change the system a little bit so that there's actually more meaningful information displayed with these bars. For example, what we try to do is give you guys exact damage values. Now, with this game, you have damage multipliers happening on the body parts, right? So on the player alone, there's different parts, and depending on which you hit, there's different multiplications, which causes different damage. We can't write all of these damage numbers down. And if you add AI to this, obviously, like, this is a huge,
it varies,
it can be also, you can imagine a balancing nightmare going through these spreadsheets and comparing numbers and having the formulas run there. So I think Rob is still crying at night sometimes over it. But what we decided on was that for specifically those comparative weapon stats, we would like to pick the upper torso, the chest area multiplication on the player as the reference point. So as you know, for example, a spark does 149 damage to that particular location, which is the strongest multiplier we have on a player except for the head. And that would be a good comparative value moving forward. We also plan on having like actual muzzle velocity in there. We also plan on having how you call it, like the ranges being actual meters, etc. So we will substitute them step by step, and we have a chance to work on that system in one of the future updates to become a bit more meaningful and easier to grasp, and therefore to compare.
Yeah,
exactly.
So someone I saw that they asked like if we can reset the money whenever the test server starts rather than using the money from the last test server. I'm pretty sure that we can do that. I'll have to ask Loic and somebody.
So what we do is before the test server goes live for you guys, before we put the new build on there, we usually take a copy of one of our live data backups, so the profiles you guys are using on live, and we copy them over. We very often do some changes to the money to make sure that people don't run around with 80k or whatever, just because we want them to actually still use the economy as it's intended, so like buying certain stuff, going for a free hunter. But for example, the hunters you had on live at that particular point when we take that sample, they would still be there, the equipment would be there, whatever you have in the arsenal. So I think whenever we go on the test server, expect that it will be close to how your profile looked maybe a few days ago, maybe even from the same day. It really depends on the last backup that we're going to choose for use for this.
Okay. Let me see. Will there ever be option to find ammo for crossbows in the world?
Yeah, we actually looked. We have a trade to find them again. I mean, the crossbows follow a different economy, at least the basic ones do, right? Like, so you have those 12+1 bolts you fire, and then you can retrieve them and therefore technically have infinite ammunition.
Yeah.
But obviously in the swamps, some things sometimes get lost, and that means over the course of a map, you might only have like 5, 6, 7, whatever left, depending on how important they were to you. We still looked at maybe adding like a quiver option or like some specific ammo pickup for the bolts, at least for basic bolts. It's something we haven't rolled out. We're not actively working on that at the moment, but it's something we might see it moving forward. Possibly maybe only at a later time when we talk a look at ammunition types.
Okay. I think we'll do like 2 or 3 more questions and then...
Is there any questions regarding the weapon balancing, weapon changes?
Yeah, I'm curious to think what you guys think about the weapon changes. Any questions?
There's a suspiciously low amount of shotgun questions.
Yeah, well, I did see someone who asked, "Oh shit, did we change the range?" But the range stays the same.
The range also is changed slightly.
Oh, okay.
So I think for hand cannons we kind of added like another 5 meters on top, and for the basic weapons I think we added like 10 meters. Obviously, there's also different damage fall off. So like those 10 meters, actually you might do very very little damage. The way the shotguns work at the moment on live is that the basic shotguns have a range of 30 meters. They have different gates along the way, I think like 10 meters, 50 meters or something like that. And we say now drop the damage to a certain multiplier of the base damage, so 0.6, 0.2. And at the last range gate, so 30 meters at the moment, we make it drop to 0, which means at that point the shotgun is totally ineffective. But that means like the last 10 to 50 meters, even like the shotgun might do very insignificant amounts of damage. So 30 isn't really like a kill range or effective range. Now we've added a little bit on top of that for the hand cannons and for the base weapons. And this is just part of this the whole package of the shotguns where we talk about the spread and the normalization of the spread pattern, the amount of spread, so like how tight is the crosshair for specific weapons, then what is the range of the projectiles, and also what's the fall off of damage of these projectiles. So there's a number of different like screws and levers, and we can kind of like tune and change in order to give a characteristic feeling to a shotgun. And we try to do that primarily, for example, for the Romero, to make sure that this feels more as a shotgun you are more likely to use at the mid-range type of, even like 10, 15, 20 meters maybe even. Not really to kill in one strike, but at least to do some significant damage still. And something like a hand cannon would obviously still maybe be more accurate than they are right now in live, but the range is still very, very low. So like you won't be able to just like snipe people with a hand cannon over like more than 5 meters.
Okay, I see one. Will shotguns be stronger generally? Will it still one-shot at close range? And will not make camping easier because you can just one-shot? He re-asked. It's really hard to...
I can pick up a couple points on that. So let's just build our own question out of that information. So will shotguns with these changes be more powerful? Yes, but only against AI. So that's some intended change we wanted to make so that you can kill a grunt, for example, the basic AI, more reliably with them. I mean, we already reduced the ammunition on the shotgun somewhat. So if you are spending, let's say, a shotgun shell on a grunt, I would consider it a waste of ammunition in most cases, right? And so at least we want to make sure that if you do that, there's a more likely chance to actually bring down that grunt. That doesn't necessarily mean there's a big change when you're fighting armors, etc. It still takes the 3 shots depending on the weapon on that. But what we have also done is made sure that against the players, the damage isn't really a big factor. Like it should feel very similar. It shouldn't feel stronger. And again, test server will hopefully give us a lot of feedback from you guys on what you feel about them, whether they are too strong, whether they are too weak. On specifically addressing the question about camping. The fact that the shotguns are more precise now also means it's harder to just spam down range. You actually need to lead, you need to hit the guy. You have an experience which is a bit closer to, let's say, like the Derringer, for example, as an example of a slow shooting, or like a bullet traveling at a very slow speed. It's harder in order to actually land that hit. Yes, sure, you have some error margin with having multiple shots go down range, right? But it's going to be on a tighter pattern. And if I do a panic shot, I might actually shoot over your shoulder or to the side of you, maybe only glance you, and therefore not do a kill shot. But at least in this case, I would know that I, as a player, I messed up, right? I fucked up on this one because I was actually not having the guy in my crosshairs. The frustrating part right now is that you have the guy fully in your crosshair, and sometimes he dies, sometimes he does not. And that's something which we fixed by normalizing the spread patterns, but overall making the weapons a bit different how they feel. They're no closer to how a real shotgun actually behaves, which is not that that doesn't do anything after 10 meters anymore. Shotguns are actually pretty accurate, even at like 30, 40, 50 meters, depending on the loads you put in. And not even meaning slugs, but actually like buckshot. And we try to give them a closer feeling to how they actually are meant to work in real life.
Okay, one more question then. I mean, you could pick up what you guys think. I'll give you both questions. I mean, I don't know if there's. I saw some emulators. Someone felt that the Immolator might be weak, being able to be taken down in 2 shots. But
I mean, yeah, sure, play and let me know if it's too weak. I can buff him if needed. I doubt that will be the reaction, but we can talk about it. There was one question about the Nitro being able to one-shot the Emulator.
Yeah.
Yes, of course, it can one-shot the Emulator. If you want to use a Nitro shot for him, go for it. But the question was more like related whether he will still explode or not. So the Emulator, even if he's got 1 health because you hit him with blunt weapons 3-4 times or 2 times, and then you shoot him once, he will die, but he will still set off the explosion. Mm-hmm. He will still release what's inside him, basically. So make sure if you shoot him always, just keep a distance because he will explode anyway.
Yes.
There was a question about performance. So one thing which we mentioned at the beginning of the stream, like 5.0 is the second performance update for us, right? So there's been a lot of work on the performance front. We've now specifically on the asset side optimized quite a lot, be that on the level, be that on some of the buildings we see, some of the assets in general, graphic side. So expect stuff to also just run a little bit smoother just because of these optimizations. Affects memories, affects draw calls, stuff like that. Obviously, if you want to get all the details, all the breakdown, then the previous 2 streams.
Also in the previous streams.
Exactly. And there's quite a lot of performance-related stuff in there as well. So it's just that for the purpose of the stream, mostly in this case, we're focusing on the features.
The content, I mean, in 2 streams ago, we talked a lot about, that was purely a performance stream, and they explained exactly what we have been doing also for 5.0 and performance-wise, so...
There was maybe it's last question for me then. There was one about the weapon balance and specifically the faster selects of the weapons.
Oh yeah, how that it felt.
So like one concern that was brought forward is like you could run a double uppercut build, for example, and just because of the way the weapon swapping works, specifically with revolvers, where during the draw you kind of recock the weapon, right? Which kind of skips the time you would normally do between shots. That it would be super powerful, super effective, and you can compete with adults by having 2 uppercuts. I mean, yes, we did that intentionally. We kind of sped things up a little bit in order to remove some of the perceived clunkiness from the system. I know this is controversial for some people who like the hardcore realism of it. Like it takes time for me to pull a weapon. But in this case, the playability, the usability was just more important to us. And specifically to running 2 uppercuts, I mean, hats off to whoever is doing that. I mean, if you go into the game with 2 uppercuts, that's not an easy thing. Mm-hmm. Like, yes, some really experienced and skilled people, they can pull that off. Like some of our streamers are fantastic to watch when they do that stuff.
Yeah.
Average Joe can't do that. I'm struggling with that. Ben is struggling with that. Like in playtests, this is not an effective load. It also limits you because you don't have like necessarily the same range or the same close range options, even if you have fanning on top. So it is a viable option. We know that things have changed with this. But we still feel it was a step in the right direction, and at the moment we have no plans of adjusting that further.
Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys had a good time looking at all the new content that's coming for 5.0. So the Emulator, we have weapon balance changes, we have changes to the animal tractors, we had quick play changes, bounty on changes, anti-clue camp, flashy light. So quite a lot of stuff. Test it out when it goes in the test server for us.
Hopefully tomorrow. No promises, but hopefully tomorrow.
No promises, but hopefully tomorrow.
I mean, I want to play it on the weekend too, so I hope.
Exactly. So let us know. Give us feedback on, Discord, Steam, anywhere. Talk to us. Send him a letter. Call him. Fax me. And we hope to see you guys for the next developer live stream. And let us know what you think. And we hope to see you all on the test server. So thank you, Ben and Dennis, for coming. Dennis. Thing now.
Thank you for hosting.
And we hope you all have a wonderful weekend. I'm gonna go now. They'll stay this awkwardness.
Yeah, come a bit closer. It's a bit awkward.
Yeah. Sit on the couch.
Okay.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Ciao.
Have a nice
Thanks for
one.
tuning in.